Welcome to Catalyzing Innovation's podcast series, where exceptional global innovators across sectors share best practices to maximize creativity and practical secrets for good implementation.
I'm extremely happy to introduce Anat Lechner, founder and CEO of HueData, an amazing new platform that enables users to instantly research color data across industries, product categories, and markets globally to inform and validate design decisions in so many areas. Anat is a professor at NYU Stern Graduate School of Business, specializing in industry disruption and change. She also has a rich consulting portfolio working with Fortune 100 companies in a range of industries. Welcome, Anat. So Anat, the first question. Oh, this is great. So thanks so much for coming today. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your company today, and how you became so fascinated by the field of color?
Yeah, I wear, as you mentioned, at least three hats, but one became more dominant over the years. I started as a business professor and a consultant, did very many years in industry consulting to Fortune 100 and others. And stumbled on this issue of color, I'd say some 25 years ago, doing some research on innovation. What struck me back then was that color is so influential in the way people make decisions on especially purchasing decisions, but on the other side, the design decisions of products, of brands, of environments, and yet there was so little data or information that was accessible. I have to say that the year was 1997, I think, when I just encountered this issue. So back then, we're talking about a number of years before Google even started, and so it's unfair to say data because no one had data, but we didn't even have solid information bases to work from, and that became very fascinating to me to think on a phenomenon where color is in everything that we experience, and then everything that we design goes to the question of what color should it be. So color is in everything, and yet we know so little about it. This became some sort of a mantra that I started to probe. I just did not understand this condition. So this is how I got to where I am today. That was the beginning of it.
No, super. And then I think the origins of your consulting business in color, you were working with clients and helping them figure out what's an appropriate color for a logo or a package, or just to be associated with the brand or with fashions or whatever. And then you had this amazing idea, which was a massive undertaking, to put together the HueData platform with so much data inputted into it. And you've created something that is so user-friendly and fun and engaging, and just there's nothing else like it. But can you talk a little bit about how your initial idea started and evolved, and a little bit about your journey? Because I know so much work and love has gone into it. So could you share a little bit about that?
Yes, of course. So kind of picture me sitting in a library on a very dreary day, and it's raining, and I'm writing on research methodology for my PhD dissertation. I'm trying to explain why I studied color innovation of all things, and there is not much that I can use to explain it, and that triggers my starting interest in this phenomenon. I then begin to think on the world I'm coming from, which is the world of strategy and business management, where decisions are made with quasi, at least, or attempted rational basis, right? And information, if not data, if not AI later. And how will I integrate more strategic thinking into this color decision making? So I'm joined with a business partner, and we develop something that we call color strategy consultation, which back in the days, there's no such a thing. No one has this terminology that they're using. And we're trying to merge the world of color with the world of strategy and see what does that even mean. For instance, what is the color? What does color intend to do for you? Does it intend to differentiate you? Does it intend to build brand affinity for you? For instance, the Tiffany color, right? Does it intend to blend you into an environment and legitimize you by that? So in other words, if you use certain color logos, you will blend into the environment in which you want to be positioned in. What is the purpose of it? And as we develop this product of ours, right, the color strategy consultation, and start writing about it and send these writings to conferences and start presenting about it, it becomes a very catchy idea for people to kind of think on and join into a conversation with us. And so we begin to get invitations, not just for speaking engagements, but also for consulting projects. So people who are doing gaming consoles are coming to us and ask, what color should it be? People who are selling T-shirts come to us and ask, what color should it be? People who are doing brand redesign or rebranding come to us and ask, what color should our logos be? That becomes a thing for us. We are then featured, my business partner was featured in an article in the New Yorker about color forecasting and making color strategic decisions. And somebody who ran a very solid business in color forecasting approaches us as a result. And she asks if we will be interested in buying her business. Back in the days, this is one of the leading forecasting agencies for everything color. It was established in 1915. And for us, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. So we buy it, the year is 2007. It's been proven to be a very difficult year to buy any business, because 2008, that followed immediately after, was a very, very difficult year and started a financial crisis, as we're all remembering. And so running a new business, which we did not really have a good sense of how to run, became a very difficult task. While we were doing that, I was consulting with IBM, and they were developing Watson, their data capability. And I was looking at how they digitized everything for other clients. And I was wondering, on all the colors that we had in an archive that dated back to 1915, I was thinking, what would have happened if we digitized all of them and we would have, shall we say, some sort of a digital footprint or digital capture of this asset? What can be done with this? So I go back to the business and I'm proposing that we will digitize these colors, and we're undertaking this pretty monumental task. 25,000 colors later, we're not yet really having understanding of what can be done with this, but we have a new product in our hands. And simultaneously, the Watson engagement continues. And so I then begin to think on a new concept that they are introducing to my life called big data. I'm thinking 25,000 data points is not big data, it's just data. What if I had all the colors of everybody? So I come back and I propose this idea, and I remember my business partner telling me that if I was just medicated better, I wouldn't have these great, crazy notions.
Uh-huh.
Because what does it even mean to have the colors of everybody? I'm thinking, all the colors of fashion, all the colors of cars, shall we say, all the colors that have been used in commercial application. Later, I got a bigger appetite for colors in art and colors in nature, but this is later. So, okay, colors in commercial applications. How interesting! What does it take to build big data like that? We're thinking colors in products, colors in brands, colors in environments. These are the three instances in which a color design decision is being made: in the brand, in the product, in the environment. So, okay, the year is 2011, and we understand absolutely nothing about data, let alone big data, and we barely digitized our 25,000 colors. So now go shop for the people who know to do something like this. By the way, they too do not necessarily exist, surely not in big numbers. And it's not like we have deep pockets to finance any of this. And so what I call climbing Mount Color begins, right?
Mhm.
And that's the metaphor that I have. And quite frankly, I'm nowhere near the summit of this mountain, right? But it's a pretty steep climb, because since color is indeed in everything, it had become a very interesting task to capture that. to capture that means to extract the color from the logo of PepsiCo, to extract the color from a Chanel perfume, to extract the color from a Gucci bag, to extract the color from a restaurant that just opened in a hotel in Hawaii. This is a very, it's an unbelievable, the magnitude of this is just unbelievable. So to
So
be
how
able
did you
to
do that? How did you do
Okay,
that?
so
Yeah.
exactly. So to be able to the dilemmas, how to extract the color, how to structure it into the right color family, how to then visualize all of this, how to database it, how to visualize it, how to create interesting analysis, how to add value with this analysis to support decisions. This became, the pursuit. How did we do that? So we were advised to take one vertical, dive into it, and just do that. For instance, all the colors of fashion shows. Okay, we started there, but my thinking has always been that we would want to have all the colors of everything, meaning all the colors of cars and fashion shows, and all the colors of pills in the pharmaceutical space, and all the colors of whichever other, right? It's like all the colors of home interior products. So indeed started with fashion because that was the most successful one, looking at fashion images, learn how to extract color from image, which is to this day not a simple thing to do, but
Mm,
technology gets better and better. Be
mm,
able to then assign the color to the right color family, which the field at large has not been obsessed with, because there's never been a need for that in a scientific way. But now there is. So if you, for instance, sample a shade of color that perhaps is light pink, perhaps it's a different range of beige, if you capture it incorrectly, then your data is skewed. So not only do you need to be able to extract the color without the shade, without this, without that, without the background, all sorts of considerations there, but you also
mm.
have to assign it to the right color family. This is very technical now, but um, we, and specifically I, had to go and build a team because I took charge over this business of ours while my business partner is handling the business that we acquired in 2007, right? We kind of divvied up the responsibilities. I had to go and build a technology team that's going to help me do this work. And so you find
And then
yourself, this is,
part of this, I just want to say one thing. Part of this
yeah,
is over the years, the new technology came about. Like, did you use visual imaging or computer
yeah,
vision to in order?
yeah.
Yeah. So, so
So,
at
so
the
that,
same time you're assembling a team, you're scanning technology all over the world
that's
to see
right.
what. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. It's a multifaceted play because you have to think on what data will make sense to your users. They
Mm-hmm.
themselves don't even know what data will make sense to them because they've never used data. It's not a profession that's used to use data. Okay, the design profession, if to say something very kind of broad brush type statement, is a profession that was schooled to use, shall we call it, educated, informed intuition, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of creativity in the decision making process, and celebrate that,
Mm-hmm.
and come to them and say, look, your decision can be inspired, it can be informed, and it can be validated, is not a language that is deeply embedded in the space.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a part of this endeavor that is about how to learn what the users will need while also educate them to what they might need, while also cultivate the interest and the desire to open up to a data offering in a space
Mm-hmm.
that's very creative.
Mm-hmm.
That's issue number one. Issue number two, which data to bring. So, is it really meaningful to see all the colors of the pharmaceutical drugs, or is it better to start with interior design of home, or is it more useful to focus on hotels and learning environments, or shall we do all of them at once? But so then you have to ask yourself, if I'm not to prioritize all the data, then I have to prioritize just based on financial means, or else I have to go and raise funding for this. So there is that aspect of the business, prioritizing the product development and prioritizing the funding of it, shall we say. And then there is the question on the technology itself and which technologies to embrace. And God, I've made so many mistakes right there because I was such novice to the space. And then who to hire and where to find them, and then how to manage them, being that I'm a person that has no technology background.
Mm.
So that's another dilemma. In fact, I'm a person that has no design background, no color
Okay.
background, more specifically, and of
Yeah.
course, no technology background. So I'm stepping into a space where, in terms of my education, I have zero relevant knowledge. In terms of my other hat as a consultant, as a business professor, I've seen a lot. So that helped quite a bit, but
Yeah.
it was a pretty big departure for me, I have to say. This is why I guess why I enjoyed it so much, or
What's
enjoying it.
interesting about it is that you bring your knowledge as a professor and a consultant, and to some extent, you're envisioning, if you're management, what you need to know about color. But you're also, I think you said, trying to understand who are the potential user groups, who your potential target personas, and what types of questions do they have, what kinds of needs do they have. They may
Yeah,
not know that these things can be answered, but so it's partly encouraging them to, what are the questions that you might have if there was a source for them. But what's
exactly.
interesting about what you're doing, and I'm guessing you interviewed a lot of these different groups to see their needs
Hmm.
in putting
Hmm.
together the product, but
Hmm.
you're really approaching this from the aspect of, again, management, of design, of aesthetics. There are a
Hmm.
lot of different potential user groups and potential needs to fulfill in just the development.
Yes, that's exactly right. And in many ways, it's like bringing an iPhone to the Nokia society. It's we didn't know that we needed, but
Yes.
once we saw it, we just couldn't do without it, right?
Hmm.
That's the experience that I have. So towards that, I did need to map the current design, the design processes that people are using, the decision processes that are using, but also kind of intrigue them with the question on what if there was data, what could you do
Hmm.
with it then, right? Exactly the way you described it. And uh, I'm now in a place where, now that I've developed a lot of this offering, I now need to find the smartest ways to bring it to market, which
Yeah.
is, yeah, a new layer for me, right, between the social media aspect of things and then the identifying the key customers with which I can kind of have a breakthrough and then demonstrate efficacy and be able to expose the idea to as many people as possible through conferences. And so it's a pretty interesting new phase, I'd say, that has been added on top of just developing everything that's been developed so far.
No, it's, having seen it, I think it's incredibly exciting. Just the range of data inputs. I think that that's
Mhm.
interesting, where you're able to find across so many industries. I don't know the precise rollout schedule, like what, because you can't do everything immediately.
Right,
Um,
right.
what's kind of the sequence of the categories that you're doing?
Yeah,
But maybe you can talk a little bit,
yeah.
one about the rollout, two, and this may be out of order, just collecting the data, where you were able to get so much data from. And then uh, actually, those two questions, then I'll ask another one because I don't want to
Yes, of
do.
course, of course.
Yeah.
So that too is quite interesting. You start in the kind of a commonsensical place. For instance, for fashion, you'd go to WWD, or you'd go to Vogue, or you go to people that report on fashion shows and take a look at their inventory of images and begin there. For cars, back and then we went to Edmunds, which had a great API. At one point, they closed their API. By the way, I had to learn this language too. Like, what is an API, right? But in 2022, I think this becomes more of a common knowledge, right? But the point was to identify the right sources of data. So museums, for instance, some museums have open API of all the artwork that dates back to the 12th century, for instance. So you can go and use this imagery, and some car companies, not necessarily brands, but companies that do car paints and finishes and materials, sometimes open their API for what finishes and materials the different brands are using, so you can extract color from there. And people like Glassdoor or Crunchbase have documented the companies of the world, and each company has a logo, and you can extract the data of logos from there. And Twitter and Instagram has APIs that you can extract color from how it's been mentioned or posted on social media. So as I take you through these examples, you can see that there is a pretty wide array of areas and offerings out there that you can tap to extract color data. But it is indeed, it involves a little bit of creative thinking on where shall you go. And to just give you an example, I'm sitting with a client of ours last week, and they talked to me about colors in the metaverse, which we've built quite a bit of data already on. He's saying we want to see the games, the online gaming community and what they've done. So now you have to go and find if there is any API for all the online games, and turns out that there is one. Turns out that there is an API for that as well. And
Wow.
so what's really interesting in all of this is what worked for me, I'd say, is that over the years, the marketplace of APIs has grown, and some are, some charge and some are free, but regardless, they are both options are available. It's just a question of identifying the sources. So
No, that's amazing how much is available. In a way, I know it's taken just a long time because it's been such a mammoth process, but in a way, it's a good thing it's taken a long time because there's so many new resources out there to
yes,
tap
that's
into.
right.
So
That's
that's
right.
pretty amazing. And then the user interface has been another challenge. I think I'm guessing you had to figure out what are the key use cases, the key
Yeah.
questions. Some of them probably came from interviews, but is there anything about your journey regarding the user interface? And again, having seen it, it's just really fun. It's the kind of thing that you get into and you start playing around and you start realizing what's possible, and one thing
Yeah.
leads to the next. So once you know how to do it, I think probably people can spend hours on it. I imagine it's going to go very viral for the user groups that it really applies to. But can you just talk a little bit about just evolving and developing the user interface?
Yeah, of course. So there are different users here, and of course, we had to kind of identify and specify who they are and what their journey might be. The part of there are several difficulties that I've encountered with this dilemma. One is no such offering exists. So
Mhm.
it's difficult to put a user in front of something like this, even at the level of wireframes, and say, what if, because they themselves don't yet know how to navigate options like this. So the learning and working with users and doing the in-depth analysis on their potential path, that's been very fascinating to create. And that was, shall we call it, kind of step one. Then, because there are different use cases, that became also interesting. So be able to distill to the 3, 4, eventually we ended up having 7 different use cases of what might be, where is the value in the data, right? And construct paths around those, or tracks, to kind of get to an answer around these use cases. For instance, we know that people need to name new colors. When they introduce new colors, they have to name them. In certain industries, not in all of them. So, for instance, in the car industry, colors come with names. In the cosmetics industry, new colors come with names. In the paint industry, new colors come with names. Where do the names come from?
Mhm.
And anyone who ever named color will tell you what an agonizing process that is. And even after you name them, you don't know if in the space these names already are being used, and are they used for the color name, for the colors you named.
Right. My favorite color name is sriracha. Um, One of the car companies has like a burnt orange color, and it's sriracha.
I
Anyway.
can run a search as we're speaking to see what comes out of that one. But so, one way to navigate the data is to go from, I have a color in mind, I'm not sure how to call it, or I have a name in mind, for instance sriracha, but I don't
Mhm.
know if this is indeed the shade of red that I'm thinking on.
Mhm.
So can we? Did you think of red, by the way?
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah. Or orangey red or what have you.
Mhm.
So can we validate that? And
Mhm.
so on the platform, you can have both ways. You can come in and say, here is the RGB or whichever notation you're using, HSL, whichever, right? Hex value. Here is the notation for the color that I'm thinking on. Tell me, what did other people call it? The engine goes back, searches through 7.5 million color names that I have in the data to then say, this particular one, I have 300 closest colors to the one that you are thinking on, and these are their names.
Mm.
So it just gives you some sort of a name cloud to work with, including those names that have been repeatedly used for shades in the area of the color you're thinking on, or for the specific color, if by any chance we have exactly that RGB.
Can you
Um,
upload a photo of a color to get some of that
yeah,
information? Hmm.
Yeah, so so you can do that as well, or you can say I have a brandcept, a concept, right, that I want to associate with the color. For instance, I'd like to promote a brand concept that says we are a trustworthy company, for which
Mm.
I'm thinking of a certain shade of teal.
Mm.
Is that shade promoting that connotation or that color association? So
And I
you'll
think you
put
have
the
this by
word.
geography. I think you have it by by region of the world as well, since the
I can parse, yeah, I can parse through regions. I can parse through the demographics or the industries from which the column names are coming from. So there's different filters that I can apply to then, or the user can apply to
Mhm.
extract as precise as possible of an answer. So this is one path, right? This is just, and that doesn't necessarily. It's not about whether you're a designer or a color marketing person or if you are a buyer, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes in the marketing materials, you'll need to speak about yourself a certain way, and has not, and it's not the job of the designer. It's actually the job of the marketeer to come up with the right language. And
Mhm.
so what I say by that is the path through the data doesn't always align with a single user. In
Mhm.
other words, a single persona. If you're a
Mhm.
designer, if you're a car designer, if you're a brand designer, if you are a fashion designer, if you're a furniture designer, no. You might be a designer, you might be a marketeer, you might be a legal person.
Mhm.
Colors, for instance, are TM'd, trademarked, and they are patented in some instances for a particular use case within the world of products.
Mhm.
So you would not want to package your new chocolate any shade of purple because Cadbury is going to go after you and they will win as they won before.
Mhm.
Okay, so if you design a package for a chocolate, then you have to know that there are legal constraints that you need to work with. We have a path like this in the data as well. So, what are the legalities associated with your color? How
Mhm.
it's perceived on social media? What name have people given to it? Is it trending? And if so, in which context is it trending? There's about 7 such applications that
Mhm.
one or values that one can extract from the data that we have.
Mhm.
Then the data is also structured in verticals. So if you want to know everything about fashion, you can go and find 30 years of fashion about more than 1 million colors that have been used in the fashion industry over these 30 years by the leading about 1,000 design houses in the world.
Mhm.
So you can run an analysis like this. You want to see the colors of cars that goes back to deep in the 20th century. We can show you how cars looked like, how they looked like in the 30s and the 40s and the 70s and the 90s, all the way to today, and which new colors have arrived for 2023. So there are verticals, right, by
Mhm.
industry. And you
Yep.
can say, I'm actually not interested in the commercial application as much. I'd like to be inspired.
Mhm.
Okay, where can you go for inspiration? So I'm thinking one of the sources, there are several sources. One of them is what's been done in the arts.
Mhm.
So, we call people like Monet or Frida Kahlo, or we call them masters, right? They are color masters.
Mhm.
What colors did they use? How did they combine colors to create a sentiment? What was their work? So our data has millions of art pieces that have been parsed for the colors that they are using. This
Yep.
is just as good a source for inspiration, right? Because you can follow these masters and their work over the years. That's a source. Or you can say, I'm interested in how I'm interested in how nature uses colors.
Yeah.
So, how does nature use color? Do you want to see a look from above, say satellite view of Earth, and see all the combinations of Earth, which is fascinating to see? Do you want to see colors of birds? Do you want to see colors of flowers? It's actually quite interesting to see the color combinations and where they are in the world, because we're so conditioned to see them as people who live in the world,
Right.
to a place where it's completely implicit to us, but I'm sure quite influential.
Right.
So
Well,
these might
I
be
love the
interesting
aspect
sources
of
of
color
inspiration.
combinations as well, because people like
That's right.
so much. So much. Even I've looked at flowers and pansies, and they'll have one color in the center and one color in the outside, or how flower beds
That's right.
together. And just the notion of combining is a whole nother area. It's not just one dimensional.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And so you can go and you can see these combinations in these resources or sources of data, but you can also go and say, I'm interested to see what Gucci has been doing over the past 20 years, because that's a designer that I appreciate and I'd like to follow their work. And you can see their work and you can see their color combinations. So lots of places to get inspiration from and kind of broaden your perspective on what you might be doing in your designs.
No, it's just so incredible. I've been talking to you for years, and I've just been blown away, which is why I wrote an article in Forbes about you and why I'm interviewing you today.
Yeah.
What is the timeline? What is the rollout of the different sectors, the different verticals, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera? And then if people who are listening are interested in starting to experiment and they'd love to try it, what's the best way for them to do that?
Right. So go to market for us is in at least three different places. One is perhaps because of my own background is entering the design schools. I think that there is an opportunity to educate a new generation of designers on the different tools and the different data sets that exist today that did not exist back when we were students, and teach the importance of working with data to inform, to inspire, to validate design decisions. So one of the main efforts that we follow is to enter design schools, and we've started with this. We have some really great success already with that for some very obvious reasons. Another is to present in conferences, and where we're presenting and are scheduled to present, especially in the next year or so, or 2023 specifically, is we're entering design conferences where people that represent design within their companies are gathering, and I think that that's going to be a great exposure for us for the brand. The third one is everything social media. There's a lot of efforts that we place to promote the brand this way, so that people become more aware. These are the avenues that we're taking so far. We have some consulting projects coming to us, which is interesting. So people that want more specific cut of the data to then relate their data to. So say a sports brand, global sports brand came to us and said, if we could take our colors and compare them with the colors that you have in the data along certain dimensions to then make sense of our own colors, and where shall we go next? That'd be interesting. We had a consulting project of people from the defense space that are rebranding, and this is one of the top defense companies, and they're looking to solidify the new colors of their brand, and they need to have a strong validation to why will they choose this color over another. So we've had some such consulting projects coming to us. We're not yet investing a lot in that. The new direction that's also emerging for us is opportunities to build partnerships with established brands in the space, both in color forecasting space as well as in color material space. So these are just exciting partnerships that we are cultivating and will continue to cultivate as ways of exposing the product that we have to a large group of corporate players. For individuals that want to come and try and play with the platform, we initially started with a free option, but there are all sorts of issues rolling this out, especially when it comes to differentiating or distinguishing between competitors of ours that can still come and play for free, and the people that we want to avail this platform to. And so what we've done is we created a subscription model that is highly affordable. By highly, I really mean highly affordable, with a free option at the start, free trial, so that you can see if this is a platform that adds value to the work that you're doing.
Oh, that's super. And is this available globally? I'm guessing it is.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is.
No, that's fantastic. And if listeners would like to get in touch with you, if they have questions, where should we direct them?
So they can always reach out to me at my email on the company is anat@HueData.com, HueData.com. That's we can make it available as a link, and that I think is the best way to reach out to me directly.
Fantastic. No, I think this is so exciting. I love hearing about it. I love watching the evolution. And again, it just seems so much fun to get in there and play around. I can see students, even not design students, but doing projects for whatever subject, and just amateurs, anybody, hobbyists, anybody who just wants to be creative. And in the creator economy, this is like the whole creator community, which is massive and increasing geometrically. I think this is fun for everybody. You know, it's both helpful in business from a business standpoint and selling your ideas, but just having fun also, and just learning about more about color and how it's used and what it means. Around the world.
Yeah, that's thank you for that. That's exactly the intent with it. And our plans for 2023 is not only to introduce more color verticals, more data in more areas, for instance, gaming, as one example we're working on, or metaverse in general, but also to avail more tools for analysis, the ability to create different mood boards, and also the ability to study color with color courses that we will introduce on the platform as well. So my intent with this platform is to make it the hub for everything color decisions. Anything you need to know about color to then make a better color decision in your products, in your brands, in your environments, in your life in general. This should be the go-to place.
Fantastic. Well, I think you're super on the way. There's just been so much time, effort, love, imagination, investigation, research, whatever. And I think it's just turning out to be phenomenal. So thank you so much for your time. Really exciting.
Thank you so much. This has been absolutely great to speak with you. And I really have to thank you for all your support throughout the years. This has been as fantastic. So I so much appreciate that. People like myself need a lot of support as we build something like this, because more days than not, you ask yourself, what did I even get into, right? It's a lot of, the roller coaster here is always very challenging. And so any show of support is important, and any show of success, which we luckily have had enough of that to continue, is as important. So this is more on the building a startup side than this particular business.
No, and it's just
so I really have to thank you for that.
Oh, it's a pleasure, and it's also you're a great role model for having a big vision, but then somehow little by little iterating and executing, which is not easy. So you kind of you come up with the great vision, but you're making it happen, which is very, very admirable. We can all learn from it. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.